Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and let's continue our journey on the omni-channel world, which I think we all know by now quite well, but still a lot to do. So before we go into the next topic, which is about really how do we operationalize this omni-channel strategy, let's do a short round of introductions, starting with Neel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Neel Edeling. I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark, representing Lundbeck, where I work and are responsible for the CRM operations.
Thank you very much. José María.
Hi, my name is José María, but people know me as Chema, and I am the global marketing lead for Sanofi Consumer Healthcare, and I'm sitting in Germany. I'm very happy to be here.
Perfect. Ian.
Thanks, Dirk. Hi, everyone. I'm Ian Ballantyne. I'm sitting in Zurich, Switzerland, and I'm the sales director at Pitcher for EMEA. Pleasure to meet you all.
Perfect. And myself, so till short, I was the global medical sales director at Reckitt Benckiser, or shortly Reckitt. But as most as you might know, I changed sites and I decided to start really working with my own company in helping life science industries and related industries in making a successful omni-channel transition. Coincidence, of course, but a really exciting journey. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. So I have a first question because, as already mentioned by many of the speakers and also by Dario, we already have faced a lot in the omni-channel journey. So my question now is, what have been the biggest changes related to how we operate and engage with our audiences since that period in time? And maybe, Ian, we start with you because you, as an omni-channel provider, you have been working with different kinds of industries. What are some of the tendencies you've seen?
Yeah, thanks, Dirk. So, I mean, as we're all here to discuss omni-channel, it's pretty obvious that everyone has either got a strategy that it's mature or they're still in their infancy, and we're all here to learn from each other. Last March, obviously, COVID turned the best made plans on its head, regardless of the maturity of the omni-channel strategy. And the primary goal was to facilitate interaction with customers to ensure regular cadence from the beginning of any lockdown that you had. So not only that, it also accelerated the different initiatives that you had. So even the ones where there was a strategy that was in its infancy, the focus came to how can we engage our customers? And as part of that, two main things came out of the discussions that we've had, not just internally, but externally with our partners and customers. And that is that content and data are key to having a successful omni-channel strategy and approach, because without the two of those, the interaction with the customer will not be on the level that the omni-channel deserves.
Perfect. José María and Neel, do you want something here?
No, I think what Ian said is quite the way we have experienced it as well, that in March it became very, very apparent that the market needs had changed, and so was the business requirements. And this is what is driving the omni-channel transformation indeed. And to be successful, it's very much the focus on the business requirements that we're seeing.
Yeah, just to complete from my side, I can say it was chaotic actually, because we were pushed to react into. I think we were sitting in a comfort zone back in March, right? With a business model that was working for so many years and trying to implement digital activities, and suddenly we were pushed to really make them real and make them customer centric. And I think we started moving toward that direction.
Yeah. So if I can pick in on what you just mentioned, so a lot of empiric kind of experiencing has happened because we were all thrown in the same bath. So curious to see what has worked well, what didn't work that well, what do you see as next logic steps, and maybe also because if we talk about operationalization, is how important is on top of content and data technology.
Yeah.
José María?
Yes. Yeah, I can jump in. Something that has worked well that I have seen is people that have been more happier with moving ahead with things without being perfect and more willing to experiment. This is what has worked well. I have seen these tendencies more, for example, in Latin America or also in Asia, where they are more focused on let's try to figure out how to engage in new ways with the customers and really understanding what are those changes. They have been rapidly adapting. There have been also some others that have been slower to adapt, because also their customers are not necessarily changing as fast. I mean, I was giving the other day the example of Germany. I was having this conversation with the German team the other day, with some of the German teams, because here, I don't know if you know, but in Germany, the pharmacists still use fax to communicate, right? And we were thinking, we don't need to push them to use digital technology, right? And so fax, it's another channel that we could use to engage effectively with them, right? So, and some of the things that haven't worked well, just to finish the second part of the question, I have seen 3 gatekeepers. One of them is technology. Sometimes it becomes a gatekeeper if it's not deployed in a way that it's to address the customer needs. The other one is, in some cases, some departments like legal or regulatory are a little bit scared of trying new things or trying to move a bit faster. And in some cases, the field force, I saw that in some cases they were scared or not necessarily, a little bit scared of the new technology and changing the ways of working.
But it's also here with the field force that it's super important to impose that the technology is not omitting them or substituting, but on the contrary, really giving them more to work with, making it easier in some extent to reach their target audience, but in different ways than the traditional approach. So I think from an omnichannel perspective, this is one of our most prized assignments, that is to make it visible, the value add that it's coming with, not to focus on the complexity of the operational side of omnichannel, but on the other side, really try and visualize what it brings to the traditional sales rep out there, because when used successfully, we really allow them to work in a much wider spectrum during the day in a more easy way. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we'll hear. It would be interesting to hear more from them, how they're adapting and what works for them, and not only, yes, it was a great rollout from a technology perspective, but how is it incorporated into the daily life of our colleagues that are actually out there meeting the HCPs.
Yeah, I can confirm that the sales reps are a key stakeholder in driving and executing on the omni-channel strategy that you put in place. So there's lots of different stakeholders that play a part in getting that executed, and sales reps are a key one.
Yeah, it's great to hear, because some different facets are popping up. It's cultural, different kind of dynamics depending on the geographies, of course, the eagerness, adoption of new technologies. So if I listen to that, there is a word coming to mind is change management, winning the hearts and the souls from the start, and not somewhere in the middle or at the end. We are already at the headquarters, but really what is in it for me, for all the roles which have to drive it. Which brings me to another topic which already has been discussed in another kind of a way. It's content. And I wanted to say is, how important is content for you in the optimization of the execution and operationalization of your omni-channel strategy? And let's also focus a bit on who should be owning the different parts in this whole journey. So maybe, Neel, we can start with you.
Yeah, I think obviously content is an important part, because if we don't have anything to share, it's going to be up the hill. However, it's just important at the same time to understand the hybrid reality that omnichannel is living in. And in this hybrid world where we're still allowing for the traditional channels, we just need to make sure that the content strategy in place is completely aligned with our omni-channel strategy. So that means whether it's gatekeepers or whether it's going the complete opposite route of starting to bombard the target audience, that's not working. So this is where the transformation really needs to take place, because that data that we're harvesting with the MarTech needs to be used in foundation to produce this content. So it's a new way of working from each side. And traditionally in marketing, it's much easier to relate to an article or a campaign or whatever it is, in comparison to now we have to understand how to really apply the customer journey in our efforts to communicate in all these channels that are available, but not necessarily all of them relevant in that context we want to communicate in. So for me, this hybrid reality is something that hopefully we're all still exploring. And that's what is also super interesting on this journey, that there are still innovation taking place, and not only A/B testing, but true innovation where we're seeing new processes being implemented into our day.
Yeah. So before I pass it on to José, did I hear you say somewhere in between the lines, like marketing, you should connect more to the reality outside there, the customer side, and then link
I just think transformation is the key word, right? We all need to adapt to the changing environment that we're in. Pharma does. I mean, we all know the blockbuster story versus Netflix. And today we also see how Netflix is really applying the use of AI. Every time each one of us logs in, they know our history, they know what our preferences are, and we'll see much more of that the further pharma is coming along into the adoption of OmniChannel and allowing for these customer journeys to leverage our communication, right?
Yeah.
So,
José.
So, yeah, I mean, the content, what I can add to this question is you need to be connected to the reality. I really love this comment because I think we were moving from a model where we wanted to do as much as possible, as many pieces as possible of content. And then we ended up like bombarding the HCPs, right? So there was like an explosion of content last year. Do webinars, do emailings, do WhatsApp, do SMS. And I think that there was a disconnection between what marketing thought had to do versus what the omnichannel strategy had to be, but also the capabilities in execution. I mean, if you produce, for example, 10 pieces of content for 10 different segments, now your MCE person activating that, they're going to have to activate 10 different campaigns. And are you expecting them to activate 10 campaigns at the same time? And then maybe that's going to be too expensive, So I think there has to be a connection to reality on customer expectations so that we don't bombard them and cause digital fatigue, and also in a model that we can actually properly execute, that is not too expensive and that it's not too complex. So I completely agree with Neel's comment.
Yeah, I think you have to enable or empower the customer because everyone has their own channel of choice. Some might prefer social media, some might prefer the traditional rep channel, whether that's face-to-face or remote, and some might like a combination. So you need to be prepared to have content personalized regardless of the channel that they're choosing to interact with, because every touch point with your organization is key, and you want them to have that linear experience regardless of the channel that they're interacting with.
So what I hear is a kind of omni-channel requires an omnifunctional kind of approach, which then also requires a clear RACI. And let's go a bit deeper into that, because also in the previous discussion we spoke about segmentation. So who owns segmentation strategy, and how do you do this now, and how do you measure success? Because we've been talking about data, applying machine learning, AI. So, but let's now look a bit at the realities. What are your findings and experiences in that area?
So, okay, if I can go first again. In my opinion, the very first, let's say, level for segmentation has to be coming from the field. It has to be, because in the end, they are the ones closer to the customers, and the foundation for me, it's always the brand adoption and the potential of the doctor, because that is what's going to drive the change in behavior. If you don't establish that from the beginning, if you start, for example, with let's do innovator or conservative doctor, you will not know what behavior you want to change in them. You don't, So, but if you start with these are the attitudes and beliefs of the HCPs of the doctors that I'm targeting, then this is how I want to change them. And then you can add the next layer on top of that. You can say, well, now we can add what is the level of content, what is the type of content you have to create to achieve that change in behavior, connected to, well, this is my recommendation, to the engagement funnel, because the doctors are going to need different types of content depending on where they are in the engagement funnel and depending on the moment of truth across their own journey. So if they are looking for content for continuous medical education, we need to be able to be present there instead of being just pushing them branded content, So that's my reaction to the question. I don't know, Neel, what do you think?
Neel,
Yeah, no, I sorry, Ian, did you?
No, Neel,
that was me.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, so I think really it comes down to having this consistent mindset to understand again where to leverage what each insight has and then do the combination, because I don't believe the hybrid reality is standing alone. I think it's a combination of what happens truly, then guarded with the technology that is available in our digital world, right? So for me, it's very much come down to this change management part of it as well, that allows for a consistent mindset to not be afraid for the reps to use the analytics to their advantage, and vice versa, not for the analytics department to understand the reps' reality, because the emotional connection and the traditional relation will always win at the end of the day. So that's where the trust presides. But that trust will be harnessed with the right data fit come in. So that's the word for me, really, having that mindset together. And it's a journey. It's not happening overnight either. So
yeah. Fully aligned. Ian?
Yeah, no, I can fully agree with that. And I think some people on the line actually can do the same. So I think
really?
Bento agrees with Jose Maria around the engagement funnel being key for data-driven strategy. And there's also one question from Gaurav around, have brand budgets flex to allow for a solid digital content strategy that can handle the new normal? So I'm thinking this is a question for you, Neel, or you, Jose Maria.
You want to take
it? Yeah, I can try. The question is about if the brand budgets have flexed to allow for a solid digital content strategy. I think they are on the way. I don't think we're there yet, especially because it's not only the budget, it's also the agencies. Right, to find an agency that really is flexible enough to. I'm going to tell you a story. Sorry to answer this question. Last year, when COVID-19 happened, we had a content strategy with detail aids and all this old ways of doing work. And then when COVID hit, we actually had to change, but we had to do a survey, and then we understood the new needs of the doctors, and we actually had to rebrief the agency to rethink about the complete content strategy, and we only had 22 days to do so because the reps were waiting for the new information. So to have a partner to do that, I don't think there are many agencies to do that. So on the one hand, on the budget, being flexible to switch budget from detail aids to new modular content, that was the first challenge, or that is the first challenge. And the second one is finding a partner that can cope with that level of modularity and flexibility.
But that's also, again, part of how we're changing the ways we're working, right? So that comes down to one of my personal pet peeves is really creating this operational excellency where you allow for the traditional roles to come much closer to whether it's the CRM operation, whether it's the data and analytics operation, so that when you start to produce your traditional brand plan, it doesn't come down to, I have 20% digital and 80% whatever I else do, right? So it's really an eye opener into what's possible. And as a Viking, I'm sure if the Vikings back when had the big drones and the big motors on their boat, they would never have rowed, right? So that's the mindset we have to come into. You actually don't have to row anymore. You can use what's available to you to plan in a stronger strategical manner for your brand. So it's demystifying of what's available when it comes down to technology as well.
Yeah, I think it boils a bit down to, because always this question is coming back of budget, but before even budget should be questioned is, okay, what is it we want to achieve? How are we going to achieve it? Why is this so important? Return on investment. And then for me, the budget follows automatically. And that's why I think we need to put the ducks on the right place in the same row. Okay, so another interesting question, because time is flying, literally, and it can be a political question, but it's the reality in any organization. How would you like to see the IT department evolve from where they often are today to a more proactively supporting partner in really helping you achieving your goals through omni-channel? And the reason why I'm asking that is I've experienced myself many times is, hey guys, this is what we have, work with it. So the answer is for you both.
So
the three of you, sorry.
The three of us.
Yeah. So maybe, José, you
might give you a neutral Swiss answer. So I think, IT, as mentioned earlier on, all departments in an organization play a key role when it comes to omni-channel. And even on the discussion that was just before, the speakers before, they were talking about a key component around consent. Now, I believe in most organizations, the IT department is looking into compliance. So having a consent strategy for the different channels is also very important. And I think that's just one key component that shows how important the collaboration between IT and business and everyone who's executing on this overall strategy becomes fully integrated as an organization.
Yeah, and that's where the new operating models that we see are really, springing from, because with all these new methodologies, such as new, but Scrum and DevOps and whatnot, you'll see a much more engaged counterpart. And I would also say IT has been the scapegoat for many years and the victim of cost cutting and whatnot. So just having the infrastructure operation running is not leaving a lot of time for innovation and supporting commercial initiatives at the same time. So I think what we'll see is exactly a new group, this commercial IT, becoming the binder between traditional infrastructure and traditional marketing. You'll see that bridge starting to form in a stronger sense to support the marketing technology, to support the data and analytics part, but certainly also really coming together in the agile ways of working, because we need to be faster with how we produce and how we evolve and enable our systems to support the new needs in the market, right?
Yeah, definitely. I want just to complement. I think the more involved they are and the more information they have about the brand strategies and the impact of the tools they provide, to the impact they have of not providing the right solutions in the market or in the competitive advantage or disadvantage, it's going to be critical. I can totally agree.
So think proactively together with the business and then make the right kind of choices.
Yeah, it comes down to the communication as well, right? The big why. Don't forget why we're doing this, because at the end of the day, we all want to succeed and create something new together. So I think that's an amazing opportunity that all of us has right now. We can actually go in and complement the processes and structures and enable technology to really facilitate better results in the market, because I mean, the doctors are no different from us. If it's not interesting, they're not going to talk to us either.
It's about delighting our customers and helping them doing the same with their patients. Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone. Yeah. No, great. So we have a couple of more minutes. So very quick, if you would have to give one advice to the audience in this whole omni-channel transition, what would it be?
I was thinking about this, preparing for this webinar, and I wrote 5. So I will have I'm going to have this one. So I would say, from my side, I would say you have to always be strategic and customer centric. Don't jump immediately into tactics, because people tend to go into MCE is digital, remote detailing, and webinars, and then just bombard. But as long as you still keep strategic and thinking about what is the behavior you want to change, what is that new reality that you have to, that your doctors and your HCPs are expecting, right? So if they're expecting an experience like Netflix, where content it's not pushed to them, but rather suggested based on their need, or even Spotify suggests content based on your mood. So they are expecting that also from pharma. So if we're jumping to tactics immediately, we're not going to get there. We need to be strategic and customer centric. So that would be my advice.
Thank you. Neel?
Yeah, keep reverting to the why. So really creating this consistent mindset of having a thorough understanding of why we're doing it. So it becomes much more clear into either cross-functionality throughout the organization, that we're really together in this, that no one is being omitted or substituted, that all our experiences together will produce this new reality that hopefully goes from hybrid then to a true reality, right? So the why, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And Ian?
I would just say keep it simple. Don't forget how important the rep is in the whole omni-channel journey.
Yeah, and I would like to add one thing. Never forget, if we look at the actual situation, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, and then I steal the quote from José, is don't strive for perfection. Start your journey, learn together with all the key stakeholders involved, and you will get there. So with that, I really want to thank Neel, José, and Ian for a great discussion. We could have continued for hours, even days. So Dario, you know what to do for next, but we heard already we are expected in May, so we are looking forward to that. So many thanks again, and looking forward to the next discussions which are coming.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Pleasure.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.